Metric conversions. Did you know that scientists and mathematicians around the world all speak different languages, but they've come up with a common language to talk about their experiments? The common language that most of them use is the metric system. It's part of the SI system. SI is for System International. And scientists years and years ago got together and they realized that everything that needs to be measured in the world can be broken down into these 7 units: kilograms, meters, seconds, amps, Kelvin, moles, and candelas. And if you combine those 7 terms any number of ways, they are, for the most part, able to measure anything that needs to be measured. In physics, we're going to focus on these three. We're going to focus on length in meters, we're going to focus on time in seconds, and we're going to focus on mass, and it's in kilograms. If I were to look at this line right here, I could measure it out, and I could say it's 6 inches. I could also say it's 0.5 foot. I could also say it's 0.0000967 miles. If you know how to convert from inches to feet or from feet to miles, these numbers make sense. But not everyone knows how to do that in their, just off the top of their head. They might need a calculator. They surely would need a piece of paper. And so there's another way to do that. We could use the metric system. So we could measure that exact same line and we could say it's 15.24 centimeters. We could also say it's 0.1524 meters, or we could say it's 0.0001524 kilometers. If you look at each of these numbers here, they all have the digits in common. So each of these numbers has a 1524 in it. The only difference is where the decimal place is. And so to go from centimeters to meters, we moved the decimal place 2 spots to the left. To go from meters to kilometers, we moved it 3 more spaces to the left. Because it's so easy to go back and forth, we don't need a calculator. We don't need our piece of paper or, some sort of calculating device. Because of that, the metric system is typically used. Another cool thing that you can use when doing the metric system are prefixes. In this class, we're going to use a table, this table in specific, to help us navigate the conversions. This uses the mnemonic device, King Henry died unusually drinking chocolate milk. And every year, someone always looks it up and says, hey, actually, King Henry didn't die that way. And that's true. This is just a way for us to remember it. It's a silly little thing that sticks in our head, and it matches with the first letter of the prefixes. So the king stands for kilo, Henry, hecto, died, deca. Unusually, this stands for the base unit. In this case, it could be meters or liters or grams or seconds. Drinking stands for deci, chocolate stands for centi, and milk stands for milli. And you never have to memorize this table. If you just remember the word, you could write it down on your sheet. When we are back face to face, you'll always have access to this on a test. So don't worry, you don't have to memorize. You just need to know how to use it. What are the abbreviations? So we know what each of those, I'm going to go back here. We know that the K represents a kilo. We know that Henry is the hecto and things like that. But how do we shorten kilo and hecto and deca? It turns out there is a prescribed way. Kilo is going to shorten to K. Hecto is going to be to H. Just when it looks like you've got the pattern memorized, that it's the first letter, we get to deca. If you notice, there are 2 prefixes that start with a D. Deci is the most common, to have a decimole or to have a decimeter. That would be just the plain old D. Deca, this one is not used as much, and so it gets to have two letters and it's DA. So if you were to have to write something like deca seconds, it would be DAS. The U on the table, this can represent any base unit. So, like I said, meter and liter and gram are common ones, but you could also use seconds and things like that. So, those are the ones that we will see in here. So, we need to learn to speak the language of science. You can't just randomly shorten this however you want. Take a moment and try these 5 examples. Okay, I trust that you hit pause and you're coming back to it now. Kilometers is going to be written as km. Centigrams is going to be written as cg. Milliseconds is going to be written as ms. Deciliters is D, capital L. Liters is the only one that's a little tricky there, and liters is a capital L. The reason for that is a lowercase l looks like a 1, and so it's just a way to keep our penmanship straight. So deciliters would be lowercase d, capital L. Decameter would be DAM. Okay, here's an example for you. I want you to try to convert 53 kilometers into centimeters. I'm going to give you a strategy and see if it works for you. You're going to identify first, where are we starting? So in this example, I'm starting with 53 kilometers. You could put one finger on that column. We're going to centimeters, so you could put the other finger on this column. What you're going to do is however many columns you need to jump to the right or left, that's how many spots you need to move your decimal place. So if we start on kilo and we move to centi, we're going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to the right. Here it is in just more of a written out way, and here's the graphic to go with it. If we move it 5 spots to the right, originally the decimal place was at the end of 53. If there's no decimal place written, you just assume that it's at the end of the number. If I move that decimal place over 5 columns or 5 spots to the right, and I move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, wherever there is like a half circle down below, like right here, wherever there is a half circle, because I'm moving it, you put a 0 there, and it becomes 5,300,000 centimeters. When you write it out, they're going to be squished like this. When we're back at school and you're writing it for real on paper, you could either put spaces here or you could put commas. And so that would just kind of help us keep track of, is it 530,000 or is it 5 million? It turns out here, based on this spaces, it's 5,300,000 centimeters. Let's try another one. I'm starting with 5.3 milliseconds. So here's my milli, and I want to go to seconds. Seconds is a base unit. So I need to move it a certain number of spaces. I'm going to have you hit pause. How far do you have to move it, and what is your answer? Okay, I trust that you hit pause. We're going to move it 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left. Here it is in picture format. I'm moving it 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left. And when you do that, you're going to have 0.0053 seconds. I'm going to close this, exit that, and I'm going to use the whiteboard. Some of you are notes takers, and so this could go in your notes. Common base units in science. These are the common ones that we're going to use. S here is going to be for seconds. M is going to be for meters. We're going to fight the urge to measure things in inches. We're going to always use meters and centimeters. And another common one would be liters. Trying to think, we would also probably see some grams, but for now we can just kind of focus on those ones. Here is our same King Henry died. This time I can mark on it. So if I start with 0.73 liters, so I'm starting here, and I want to move to kiloliters, I've got to move my decimal place 1, 2, 3 spots. So I start and my number is this. It has a decimal place right here. I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3 spaces. So my decimal place is now right here. I need to, whatever is an open spot, I put in a 0. So I'm going to rewrite this number as 0.00073, and that is kiloliters. And try one more. This is HM. H tells me, use a different color pen this time. H tells me that I am in hecto. So I'm starting right here and I'm moving to millimeters. So I'm moving to here. So I'm going to move the decimal place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to the left. So this was my original number, and I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces to the left. Anything that has an empty spot is going to get a 0, and my units are wherever I landed, so that's millimeters. If I were to write this again, I could just leave a space with the 0 so I could read it a little bit easier, but it's 375,000 millimeters. 375,000 millimeters.